All right, I'm back. I want to talk about a single that came out 60 years ago on April 9th, 1965. That's Ticket to Ride on the A side, and yes, it is on the B side. Now, Ticket to Ride was from the upcoming movie Eight Arms to Hold You, as you can see on the record label here. I listened to several versions to prepare for this. The US albums collection had the mono version and the stereo version. And then on the Help CD from 1987, there was another version in stereo. And then the Red album that came out in 2023 had another version of Ticket to Ride. And I didn't hear much difference between the mono and stereo versions of the US album version. But that's partially because in order to make the stereo version, they took the mono version and made it fake stereo. So of the two, the mono one sounds perfectly fine. It's good, but I like the Beatles are getting into the era in which the stereo version sounds better, and even the fake stereo version. I like having the stereo for a song like this. But the 87 version is for CD is a little bit better. And then the 2023 one is much better. So it's my favorite version of that. But this one was mostly written by John with some work with Paul. And Paul didn't like this song for some reason. And it features a electronic pedal attached to George's guitar for the first time. He used it in several other stuff. He was playing a 12-string electric, which he'd started playing for Hard Day's Night. Anyway, the B-side, the A-side is one of the favorite Beatles songs for most people. The B-side, on the other hand, yes it is. Most of the reviews I found for this were from people who hated this one. They didn't like it. They accused it of being a remake of This Boy. Now, I had several versions to listen to for this. There's the version on the US album's mono version, the US album stereo version, the Past Masters version from 1987, and the version from 1995 from the Beatles anthology, which was a not finished version. And the Beatles anthology was my first introduction to this song, and that version is my favorite one. Even though I can hear it's not complete at one point, John singing dee da dee 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 da instead of words he hadn't written yet. But it starts off kind of quiet, and it builds and builds and builds and builds, and I feel like the finished version was overproduced. So the mono version is not as good as the stereo version on the US albums. The Past Master version is not much better. The Beatles anthology version is still my favorite version. But I'd never heard this before for some reason before that. It's not on any of the Beatles albums, but it is on the US Beatles albums, but not on any of the British ones, which, when in the 21st century I started collecting the British albums on CD, it was not on any of them except Past Masters, which I didn't get for some reason, because it didn't fit into the timeline right. Anyway, yes it is, Beatles Anthology version, one of my favorite Beatles songs, and Ticket to Ride I like a lot too, from the upcoming movie Eight Arms to Hold You. That title got changed before the movie came out.